Disneyland in Anaheim, California contains a multitude of themed lands. However, one land in particular never fails to draw attention to itself. Tomorrowland. No, not that one. Yes, that Tomorrowland. Now, I won't go into whether that attention is good or bad, but a lot of it can be drawn up to the fact that a majority of Tomorrowland is outdated. And no attraction better demonstrates this than, you guessed it, Autopia. This nearly 70-year-old attraction has hardly changed more than getting a new sponsor since opening day, and it's obvious. It is loud, big, and stinky. Three things that do a lot more harm than good when you're already in the most loosely themed land of the park. The concept of the ride is outdated and in dire need of an update. Now, the first suggestion that usually gets brought up is, well, just replace the engines with electric motors, since electric vehicles are the future. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also think that myself before doing my research for this video. However, there's much more than meets the eye when it comes to a change like this. Would Disney save or lose money? What impact would the change have on the environment? Is it worth doubling down on Autopia if it's already outdated? Stay tuned as we dive into how Disney should fix the Autopia problem. If you like this content and would like to see more, please consider subscribing. It helps me a lot and gets that fresh Disney content delivered straight to your home screen. Now, on to the video. Walt Disney's Automobile Utopia was an opening day attraction, and in 1955, it represented the future of American transportation. At the time, yes, this ride was futuristic because the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways had not been created yet, and wouldn't exist until the distant year of 1956. Yeah, so Walt wanted to show guests what the future could look like by creating a miniature highway system upon which children and adults alike could drive. Flash forward 66 years and it basically hasn't changed. Autopia fills the once idyllic and futuristic air of Tomorrowland with a cacophony of engines and the accompanying aroma from those engines. So, who do we have to thank for the use of these glorious engines? Well, for the majority of its life in Disneyland, Autopia actually wasn't even a sponsored attraction. It wasn't until 2000 when Disney wanted to refurbish and add to the existing ride track that they decided a sponsor would be necessary. Enter Chevron! From 2000 until the summer of 2012, Chevron's cartoonish cars could be seen traversing the winding tracks, as could their logo, on just about everything in the queue. When the sponsorship ended, the Chevron cars were still shown in the queue, and it wasn't until Disney constructed a brand new loading area building in 2016 that Honda officially took over as the ride's sponsor. Honda outfitted the cars with their IGX270 engines and added their own special touches to the ride scenes along the track, including their humanoid robot, Asimo. The new engines are more efficient than the previous engines and feature a speed governor that caps out your car at about 6.5 miles per hour. The track for Autopia takes up about the same amount of space as Jungle Cruise in Disneyland. However, it also doubles as the roof for the show building of Nemo's Submarine Voyage, so it's not a totally inefficient use of space. Compared to Tomorrowland Speedway in Magic Kingdom, Disneyland's Autopia is much larger, and much more focused on exploration rather than racing. Tomorrowland Speedway's design is much closer to that of a racetrack, which makes sense since it was once actually called the Tomorrowland Indy Speedway. Its track has been shortened numerous times over the years to make room for other attractions, the most recent track adjustment being in 2019 to make room for Tron Light Cycle Run. The first time I saw Tomorrowland Speedway, I remember how surprised I was that it looked so industrial. It's almost not even fair to compare the two, as their designs and theming are vastly different. However, it still has the same basic features of all the other Autopias. Today, there are only 3 incarnations of Autopia still standing, in Anaheim, Orlando, and Paris. However, at one point, there were 5 Autopias. Autopiae? Autopi? 5 Autopias, but the versions in Hong Kong and Tokyo have both closed to make room for new attractions. If 2 Autopias have already closed permanently, shouldn't we just expect similar fates for the remaining 3? Why has Disney even kept this ride around? For starters, I think it's safe to say this ride is most popular with children, or guests who wouldn't get to drive a car outside of Disney. I remember the first and only time I rode Autopia, I was so excited to get my license and drive. Granted, I don't think I was tall enough to even reach the pedals, so I got to steer, and steer I did. Autopia is also an opening day attraction in Disneyland, and therefore something Walt himself worked hard on perfecting. So due to success with children, the track sitting on top of another attraction show building, and some good old Disney nostalgia, Autopia won't likely be going anywhere anytime soon. So we can't change the track or the ride itself. Then that leaves the cars, and more specifically, the fuel-burning engines they use. However, if you would like to know what I'd do to Autopia if I could retheme it, you should check out my podcast with my friend Alex, Main Street Meckies, where we talk about all things Imagineering and theme park design. I'll leave links below. But anyways, let's keep going. Let's just stick electric motors in them, you might say. And my response would be, okay. Electric motors are quieter and produce no emissions, while still being capable of producing the same power output as their internal combustion compatriots. Electric vehicles are also the future! So obviously we should stick them in the Autopia cars, right? Let's compare the engines currently being used against a comparable brushless motor designed for use in go-karts, specifically this 1800 watt brushless motor kit, which rings in at around $200 on Amazon and is pretty overpowered for only needing around 7 miles per hour as our top speed, but then again, so are the engines in the current cars. According to Honda's website, these cars have a fuel capacity of 5.3 liters. Based on a single Reddit post I found from a cast member, again, this data ain't easy to find, the cars at Autopia are refueled about every 2 days. If the cars are running constantly, 12 hours a day let's say, for 2 days before being refueled, then they're burning fuel at a rate of about 0.22 liters per hour, or about 1 US cup of gas per hour. Taking these numbers back in the other direction, we get that each car in Disneyland's Autopia burns through roughly, and I mean very roughly, 967 liters or 255 gallons per year. This will be important later. So, how does this compare to our sample electric setup? This motor can put out 1800 watts of power, which is a lot. However, assuming our motor can only run at 10% of what it's capable of to get the Autopia cars moving, the same percentage that the current engines run at, then we only need about 180 watts from that motor. Just like with the current engines, we'll assume the cars are running for 12 hours a day. Yes, this is overkill, but it still gets the point across. We need to figure out how much energy a motor running under these conditions would need to consume. Now, battery capacities are typically given in units of watt-hours. Watts are the rate at which a battery can provide energy, and when multiplied by how many hours it can continuously provide that energy for, you get watt-hours. 180 watts for 12 hours a day gives us a requirement of 2,160 watt-hours, or 2.16 kilowatt-hours. How much money are we actually talking about here, though? Well, if our goal were to save money, then we should look at diesel fuel and power costs in Southern California for comparison. Over the last 6 years, on average, a gallon of diesel fuel cost $3.37, bringing the cost to run one car for a day to $2.35. Commercial power in Anaheim is currently being sold on average for about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. That brings us to a whopping 34 cents to run a car for a day. Now, am I an electrical engineer? No. A power systems engineer? Definitely not. A measly mechanical engineer? Bingo. So take all these numbers with a massive grain of salt and let me know in the comments where I got the numbers wrong, because I'd love to know. The point still stands though. It is cheaper to be electric than it is to use diesel fuel. So obviously Disney should do it, right? Well, actually, they already have. In 2006, Hong Kong Disneyland opened their version of Autopia, also sponsored by Honda, which featured a fleet of similar cars to those in the US, except for one key difference. They had electric motors. That's right, Disney already did it once. And no, you can't go off to Hong Kong and ride it because guess what? They got rid of it to make room for Avengers Campus, so that's great. Now you may be wondering, what was it like? Was it any better? Well, the guys over at Attractions 360, who post amazing ride videos from all over the world, actually got to experience the Hong Kong Autopia before it closed in 2016. I asked them what they thought of the ride, and they said it was pretty much the same experience as the gas-powered Autopia, except the ride was way smoother, there were no gas smells in the air, and it fit the theming for Tomorrowland way better. They said that Disneyland and Disney World need to switch over to electric as soon as possible. Okay, so every sign is pointing to yes, Disneyland should definitely do this. Then why haven't they? Well, we need to take a look at the main reason for switching combustion engines over to electric motors in commercial vehicles: environmental impact. But it's not like Disney's doing nothing to shrink their carbon footprint. Disneyland actually converts their leftover cooking oil into biodiesel, which is then used to power the Mark Twain riverboat and the Disneyland Railroad. According to the Disney Public Affairs website in 2019, this switch to biodiesel saved the park around 200,000 gallons of petroleum diesel per year. Along with powering some vehicles with biodiesel, Disneyland has also been using compressed natural gas to power parking lot trams, which saves around 56,000 gallons per year, various attraction vehicles including the Columbia, river rafts, jungle boats, Main Street vehicles, and all of the parking lot shuttles. Not only that, but all of the parade floats used in the Disneyland parades are moved via electric power. So Disney's already doing a lot in terms of lowering their emissions. And to top it off, in California Adventure, there is a 40,000 square foot solar array on top of the Radiator Springs Racers show building that provides enough energy to power 100 Anaheim homes for a year, which is a very vague and strange metric, but significant nonetheless. Remember how much fuel we figured out is burned at Autopia by just one car? Based on our very vague assumptions, each car in Disneyland's Autopia burns about 255 gallons per year. Let's say there are 50 cars in the fleet, so that gives us 12,750 gallons of fuel being burnt at Autopia every year. But compare this to the 200,000 gallons saved by using biodiesel, or even the 56,000 gallons saved by using CNG in the parking lot trams. This is a pretty small amount of fuel, especially when you take into account the funding Disney would need to devote to retrofitting all of the vehicles with the help of a sponsor. Plus, the attraction would need to close for a while, and it's a really popular attraction with kids, who honestly couldn't care less about the drivetrain technology used in their car. Now, I'm sure all of the die-hard Disney nerds out there are screaming right now, but wait, Disney World has a giant solar farm and food waste plant, and I know, but this video is already way too long, and if you want to learn more about Disney World, the Reedy Creek Improvement District, and what they're doing to lower carbon emissions on the East Coast, you should check out Midway to Main Street on YouTube. His videos on this subject are incredibly informative. So in the end, yes, it would make sense both financially and environmentally and thematically for Disneyland to put electric motors in the Autopia cars. However, the target audience for this attraction is children that don't normally get to drive anywhere, so I don't think they mind the engines. Also, to make these changes, it would probably cost Disney a lot more than they'd save in the short term, and would most likely take a while to see a return on their investment. Not to mention, they've been focusing on changes that would make a much larger impact on their carbon footprint in the meantime. Personally, I would love to see electric cars in Autopia. Tomorrowland is consistently one of the most loosely themed lands in the US Disney parks, and I'm glad Disney's revamping Epcot, but I'd love to see Tomorrowland get the same attention in the future. Electric vehicles are the future, and educating today's youth while giving them a fun and gas fume-free experience sounds like a win-win to me. So what do you think? Should Disney replace all of the engines in the Autopia cars with electric motors? Were my motor calculations way off? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And if you're still here, then thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.